Hello and welcome to Arvada Insights. I'm Wendy Brockman. If you don't believe in the power of positive thinking, this show might change your mind. We are meeting three men, all diagnosed with a crippling and ultimately terminal illness in the prime of their lives. They have Lou Gehrig's disease, named after the Yankee first baseman who died in 1941. It's called amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS. It destroys the nerve cells, ultimately causing paralysis. And so far, no cure exists. Despite that, though, there is hope and optimism. Just ask Joe Eades. He is 46 years old. He has a wife and two young children. A few weeks ago, he left his job as a landscape architect for the city of Arvada to begin a new chapter in his life. Please welcome Joe Eades. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling well.
Tell me how this all started for you, those first symptoms that kind of changed everything for you.
The first symptoms were stiffness. I had some get me out of bed Charlie horses. And I would notice when I was out helping coach my son's soccer team that I was stiff. And I was running, but not, I just felt tight. And I kind of chalked that up to old age.
Sure.
I said, got to spend more time in the gym, stretch more. And then one day, it was in the fall, and I typically biked for physical activity, but as the days got shorter, I said, it's time to start running again. I can run 30 minutes, be done with it. And so I went over to the open space, and I started running, and I just couldn't get my left foot to work right. And that scared me enough to call the doctor, and the rest is history.
The rest is history. They didn't diagnose it initially.
No, they did an MRI to check me out for MS, and it came back clean.
So you were so happy.
I was so happy. And I went out for a bike ride, and I had my hands above my head saying, praise God.
Yes.
And I was just happy as could be. And then I made the mistake, after my kids went down that same night, of getting on the internet. I Googled MS, MRI, rule out.
You remember what you Googled?
Yeah, just to see what that test would rule out. And then I came upon a site that said an MRI will rule out MS, but it will not rule out ALS. My next search term was ALS, and at which point I won't tell you what I said because we're on TV.
The symptoms all added up.
They did.
Did you know then?
I knew.
Did you really? You knew.
And my wife thought I was crazy, but four weeks later, after nerve conduction tests, more MRIs, all this other stuff, when they told me that I had it, you know, my wife was just completely blindsided because she thought, you know, no way.
You were so active.
But I kind of knew I had it.
Yeah, you just knew something wasn't right. Yeah. What did you do for the city of Arvada?
I designed parks, put them out to bid, and then managed the construction as the park was put into ground.
And you've worked for the city for how long?
9 years.
9 years. How long ago were you diagnosed?
December 14th, 2007.
2007.
Yeah.
And why did you decide to leave?
Well, it's difficult for me to get around. At one point I thought, well, as long as it's just my legs, you know, I can still work. But what I found was that I get home at the end of the day and I didn't have anything left.
Yeah.
And I decided that it would be best for both my health and my family to kind of let go. And my first date was January 2nd. My next date was the end of February. And finally, 2 weeks ago, I wrapped it up.
Was that hard?
Very hard.
Yeah. You loved your job.
Hard. I did. I liked the guys that I worked with, and it was a good gig.
You wrote a letter to your coworkers, and I'll read just an excerpt of it. The whole letter was great, but this is just a short part. You say, I've wrestled with how to roll this information out to those I work with. It is an awkward deal, and I certainly don't want to make others uncomfortable, but I'm stumbling around a bit and people are starting to ask. I feel bad about dropping this on some poor unsuspecting soul who asks if I tore my ACL skiing or whatever, but I don't want people walking on eggshells around me either. It is what it is, and I've got to live with it. Why did you write the letter?
Well, I mean, Arvada is a pretty close-knit community. You know, there are a lot of people that I work with, and I'd gone from walking with a limp to getting a brace to using a cane, and it was obvious that, you know, this thing was progressing. And I reached the point where I was comfortable enough that I wanted to share it and hopefully put people at ease. And, you know, I just figured an email. I didn't send it out to the whole city. I just sent it out to those that I worked with on a regular basis and just let them know what was going on. And I told them that I was diagnosed with ALS, and I just figured, you know, then we could call a spade and just move on.
And you'd said in your letter you didn't want them talking about you unless it was some sort of juicy scandal. So
well, I said if I was going to be the source of a rumor, I'd rather it be about me and the Swedish bikini team. But
so you cleared that up.
Yeah.
You were pretty active before this, weren't you?
Yeah.
That's one of the frustrating things about ALS. It doesn't discriminate, as you say. It doesn't matter if you're a couch potato or you run marathons. You can still be susceptible. How active were you?
I hit the gym a minimum of 3 days a week. I biked as often as I could. I had a bike in a locker at work.
Wow.
And if I could get away over my lunch hour, I'd go for a 45-minute bike ride. I love to fish. That was my passion. And so I just tried to stay in shape so that I could go, you know, be a weekend warrior.
Right.
And we hiked, we biked, we camped. Anything outdoors, we were.
Colorado's the place, isn't it?
Yeah.
One of the difficult things about ALS is that it affects everyone differently. You don't know exactly how it's going to progress, at what rate. So how do you prepare if you don't really know what to expect?
People told me to do things before you need to do them.
Okay.
And for the most part, we've done that. We're a little behind the 8 ball on our house. We live in a
financially and
oh, well, that too.
handicap accessibility, is that what you're?
Well, we live in a 2-story house, and we probably should have moved into a ranch sooner, but you know, we thought, well, we've got time. But I can still climb stairs, but it's getting more difficult. So we're putting our house on the market. Fortunately, you know, I've always been a saver. And so, you know, we're not flush, but we're as prepared as I think one could be. And, you know, some of this you just can't really prepare for. But the way that I learned to prepare was talking to other people with ALS.
And you really aren't bitter or angry?
I wouldn't, no, I'm not bitter or angry. A better word would be disappointed. And I would say that I've kind of grieved. Things that I know I'm going to lose.
Yeah. You have a family.
Yep.
Yes. We have some great pictures of you with your wife Becky and your kids. Nate is 8, Katie's 6. You guys are swimming with the dolphins, you're fishing, hiking. I'm sure that part makes it difficult. But at the same time, they give you a reason to smile every day when you wake up. I mean, they can, you know, be your crutch.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at this, my job is to do everything that I can to stay healthy. Pardon me.
It's okay.
And you know, walk through this with dignity and grace.
That's what you want to teach them.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have formed some really strong friendships since your diagnosis, and we are going to meet your buddies coming up in a few minutes. But first, can you tell me real quick about the walk to defeat ALS?
Yes, we did a walk with the ALS Association, the Rocky Mountain chapter, and they do that every year, and it's their major fundraiser for the year. And it was up around City Park. We walked around the lake, and I used trekking poles. I made it halfway around the lake, and then I was in a wheelchair for another half lap, and I was just like this, trying to think of a television appropriate word, but I wasn't happy with it. And so there was a scooter vendor there, and I asked him if I could take one of these things for a cruise. So I was there with a bunch of people from church, with Roger and Stephen were there, and you know, it was just great to see all the people come out to advocate for the disease, to raise money for ALSA, which is a great organization and has helped me tremendously. It was a very hopeful kind of day.
Yeah, good. You need those.
You do.
Yes, you do. All right, stay there.
Okay.
Don't go anywhere. Coming up on Arvada Insights, 2 more inspiring stories. We're going to meet the men who've helped Joe learn how to live with ALS and how they all 3 hope to beat the odds with positive thinking.
Want to know what's happening in your community? Watch the A-Files and catch stories about people, places, and events right here in Arvada. From Old Town to the Arvada Center and beyond, your neighbors, your community. Stories about Arvada on A-Files right here on KATV Channel 8.
Welcome back to Arvada Insights. There is strength in numbers. Joe Eades, a former landscape architect for the city of Arvada, resigned last month as he battles Lou Gehrig's disease, known as ALS. He has 2 friends who know exactly what he's going through, and together they form a pretty optimistic bunch. Please welcome back Joe Eades along with Roger Childs and Stephen Bishop. Hi, guys.
Hello. Hi.
So, how did this trio meet?
A woman from my church lives around the corner from Roger, and she gave me Roger's phone number. And I called him up and just introduced myself, and we talked for about an hour on the phone. And then he had me over to dinner where he invited Stephen, and we've been hanging out ever since.
Your buddies?
Yeah.
Yeah, we even invited Jim and Leisha West.
Yeah.
It was the 4 of us there with ALS, kind of just sharing stories and
Yeah.
getting to know each other.
Little mini support group.
Yeah.
Interesting dinner party.
It was.
A quick introduction. Roger, you're 41 years old.
Yeah.
You were diagnosed in 2005 at the age of 37. You've been married to your wife, Julie, almost 17 years.
Yep.
You have 2 sons. Connor's 12 and Brandon is 8.
Correct.
And Stephen, you are 43 years old, almost 44. You were diagnosed in 2001 at the age of 35. You have a wife, Jennifer, and a 10-year-old son, Christopher.
Correct.
You call him Chris or Christopher?
He would prefer Chris.
He would, okay. He's getting older.
He
I'm
is.
Sure, okay. So, Stephen, you've been living with ALS for 8 years now. It is progressing a little more slowly for you.
I would say much more slowly.
Much more slowly.
Yeah.
You've been a national spokesperson for the Muscular Dystrophy Association, which is how we met, actually. Tell me about the telethons and your relationship with Jerry Lewis.
Well, the telethons just kind of happened so quickly. We were, right after we were diagnosed in 2001, we just wanted to get active as much as possible and have as much control over the disease as we could mentally, and we just started getting involved with the MDA, and next thing we knew we were on the local telethon with you,
Right.
Which was an amazing experience, and the people with MDA ended up putting our our application in for the national telethon, and we ended up the next year we were on with Jerry Lewis, and it just continued from there. And I remember on that first telethon with Jerry, he asked for our phone number because he was going to keep in touch with us, and sure enough, that next week he called us, and he appointed himself my positive mental coach, and he really did.
He's something, isn't he?
He is really something. We just talked to him and had called him for his 83rd birthday.
Oh my gosh.
On Monday. So, you know, the biggest thing about the telethons is it gives us an opportunity to really thank the people that are contributing and making a difference. You know, when they see a face that's associated with the disease that they're funding research on, it makes a big difference. And when you know how much you're appreciated for what you're doing, it helps us to give back in that way too.
You helped establish a Muscular Dystrophy Association-sponsored support group in Denver for ALS patients. You and your wife Jennifer have just become so active. I imagine you get as much out of that, though. Oh,
absolutely. I mean, actually, it was more Jennifer that actually did the organizing of the new group and like that. But that was several years ago. You know, it's just it's very fulfilling to be involved, and you feel like the disease isn't just happening to you. You feel like you're fighting it. You're in this battle with it, and the more you can get involved by having awareness events and finding people to contribute and so forth, you feel like you're actually able to battle the disease no matter what it's doing to your body. And I think all three of us have already been experiencing that.
Is that true for you, Roger, that empowerment?
Yeah, I mean, when you first find out, you go through so many emotions, from anger even at God, and you're wondering why would such a young man with two young boys be given a disease. And I struggled so much in the beginning to try and understand, to find purpose, if you believe in the fact that God has a purpose behind everything and anything that he may you know, put in your life, then what was the purpose for me to have ALS? Why would I have a terminal disease? Why was I finding myself sad and distraught over not being able or thinking that I may not see my sons get married, graduate high school even, have grandchildren? And it's just you can't continue on in that fashion, or you'll just tear yourself up. You can't go into a corner and just pull the wool over your head and say, "Oh, everyone leave me alone," and go into a depressed state.
It's a downward spiral when you start getting involved.
You can't. And so the only way I found to live is say, well, I have ALS. I have limited time. It's kind of like being told the future. I don't know exactly when. In fact, no one is guaranteed tomorrow. But I've been given this little bit of information that prompted me right then and there to be as optimistic, as positive, and to start getting my butt moving with regard to doing family trips and vacations and trying to just absorb memories as quick as possible. Sort of feels like the timer is ticking down, you know, and to take advantage of every day. And just and also you can only live each day as it comes, because if you're thinking about tomorrow and where will my progression be next month or next year, that also will take you into this terrible spiral of depression and anger and distraught.
It's not in your control. You can't.
No.
You can't live that way.
So Joe, you've probably just learned so much from them. They've been living with ALS a little bit longer than you have, and
he's the master.
He's the veteran.
He is who Julie and I came to first. Stephen and Jennifer is who we were put in touch with within the first week, and everything. If I've helped Joe by inviting him to my house and explaining to him, you know, I understand. I know what you're going through. Stephen was there for me in that same regard. So it's kind of like boom, boom, boom.
Well, and you know, we went to a support group and we had people that were helping us there. So it really is an establishment of understanding that we're not alone, right? I mean, when you first get diagnosed with this ugly disease, there's no one else in the world. But when you're able to understand that, gee, right in the same community, you've got 3 people that have a young family that know what is going on and how it feels for certain things as the disease progresses, not being alone makes all the difference in the world. And, you know, I got such a kick out of being able to be there with Jennifer and help with Roger and Julie and kind of guide them a little bit to what we've already been through. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, the bigger joy was watching Roger and Julie be able to do that for Joe and Becky. Because it's just this way of cascading down the help and knowing that everybody's there for everybody else. And that's what I think this is all about.
And Joe, I talked to your wife, Becky, and she mentioned how amazing it was to be invited over, Roger, with you and your wife, and to, because your wife can relate to Becky. I mean, they're in the same boat, and that just meant the world to her.
Yeah, well, and it did, and that's been incredibly helpful. But to put it in perspective a little bit, when you're diagnosed with ALS, depending on the bedside manner of your diagnosing physician, you know, you're going to get something like, well, this is too bad, get your affairs in order. And I had a very empathetic diagnosing physician.
You have 2 to 5 years. Get
Yep,
your affairs
2
in
to
order. That's
5
what I was
years,
told
put your
with
affairs in
Stevens.
order. And, well, can we do this? I've read about this, I've read about that. Can we do this? No, 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 no. And so coming out of that, to be able to talk to Roger and then Stephen and then say, look, you know, these guys don't know it all. This is our experience, you know, and here's Roger running around at 3 years, helping his kids coach soccer. Here's Stephen at 8 years, having, you know, done all the service that he had done. That was, you know, tremendously encouraging. And it also helped you kind of get to the point where you could filter, you know, the statistics, which a lot of people still argue about, and say, okay, well, this is my reality. I don't have to base it simply on, you know, the opinion of this one person. And, you know, that kind of sums it up. And then hearing them talk, every time we get together, it just kind of lifts me up.
Yeah.
The same questions Joe had for me, I had for Stephen. What supplements can I take? What medications might I look into to help with cramps and pain and spasms? And
But Roger's the master of spreadsheets, so
I'm the engineer.
I saw your website.
Wow. Yeah. So
My gosh.
I took,
do you know your heart rate right now?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
Well, wait, no. I took an Excel-style spreadsheet and collected Stephen's supplements and medications and my own and Joe's and a number of other people. And I put them all side by side and was comparing who was taking what. I myself went through chiropractic. We went through acupuncture, Chinese herbalistics, and different medications, and kind of been all over the map. And Joe asked me, you know, well, what did you find worked? Did you feel more strongly about something over another? And so we were able to share that information.
There's so much that's evolving in the research, and I mean, every day it seems like there's new information. So for you guys to take charge of your own situation and make the best of it, it makes sense. I mean,
we're all members of a website that allows, it's sort of a live database that allows all ALS patients to share. Just what I did on a spreadsheet. This is on the scale of 3,000 or more ALS patients. And so you can see what kind of devices, wheelchairs or speech augmentation devices, supplements you can compare. So I don't really do my spreadsheets much anymore because I've got this incredible tool that's been made available for us.
You got to love the internet. Stephen, you and your family were on the front page of Parade magazine. I remember opening up my paper in the morning and saying, hey, there's Stephen. In the article, you say that you've honestly never been happier which I think would seem like a stunning statement to most people, but
It's true.
It's true?
It's true.
You described in the article a recent summer evening, and I just love this. The article reads, "The bishops had dinner in the backyard and watched the sunset over the Rockies. Then father and son lay on the grass looking at the stars and talking about big topics like God and the future. And then you say, I told Christopher, your son, that I didn't know how long I'd live, but neither does anyone else." And that seemed like a pretty fair deal. What an eye-opening way to look at it. I don't know how long I'm going to live.
Really, none of us do. You know, it just, we have no idea, so it really is up to our mental capacity to figure out how we want to live this life, however long this life is. So if you have a lousy situation and you try and turn around to whatever you have control over, okay, that's emotionally how you're going to deal with it. I can't imagine that I would want to have a shortened life by ALS and then have my son remember that I was just a crotchety old man dying from ALS. And the legacy that I want to leave has to do with being as positive, very much like what Joe said, that we handled it with dignity and did it to the best of our ability, and the people around us felt loved and we felt loved, and that's the best anybody can do.
That's what you were saying, Joe.
Yep.
You have an opportunity to teach your kids something really amazing.
Yeah, you know, when it's all over, you know, I just think that if they can look at me and say, you know, he did everything that he could do, and he trusted and relied on God, then, you know, that could give them hope. And as difficult as it will be, this could be a great lesson for my children.
That's exactly what I think. Another way to put what Stephen was saying into your question about why would Lou Gehrig say that he was the luckiest man on the planet Earth, and why do a lot of people with ALS say that they're lucky? It's because I liken it to a switch being flipped in your head. The people who survived the Hudson River crash, every one of them had a switch that's flipped, and they said, wow, I've been given a second chance. And I would much rather be living my life to the fullest right now and in just embracing every one of these moments with my children than to get hit by a car tomorrow morning or to have a heart attack. I actually consider the situation almost lucky, because it's very hard for people to understand. Why would you say that? It's because we are now living the absolute best we can possibly live when it comes to our wives, our family, our children, making amends with family members, and just embracing every moment. It's precious. And it doesn't mean you always have to be doing adventures, and you can sit on the couch, you can watch TV, you can relax, but you're content. You know that you're making time count.
You truly are three remarkable men, and I'm going to live my life better each day as a result of knowing you. So thank you.
Thank you.
They hope to spread the word about ALS, raise money, and help find a cure. But they also have an amazing message that is relevant to all of us. They don't know how long they'll live, but then again, none of us do. So live for the moment. My thanks to Joe Eades, Stephen Bishop, and Roger Childs. I'm Wendy Brockman. Thanks for watching Arvada Insights. We'll see you next time.